Do you ever wish you could be a fly on the wall for conversations between successful women entrepreneurs in different industries?
That's exactly what Breaking Even Better podcast is.
Every week, we'll share raw,
real,
and unfiltered insights from our experiences scaling our businesses
and helping others do the same.
Hey everyone, welcome back to Breaking Even Better. I'm Trish, and today I'm taking the lead as we dive into a topic that's not nearly talked about enough. How to say no to growth. Yep, you heard that right. We spend so much time as business owners focusing on scaling and expanding and chasing new opportunities, but sometimes the right move is to pause, to stabilize, or even scale back. So today, Brenda, Caroline, and I are going to explore what that looks like, why it's important, and how to know when you're at that critical and pivotal moment in your business. So let's start with the big question, the ugly question. Is it actually possible to grow too quickly? Carolina, as a fractional CFO, you've seen businesses at all stages. What's your take on this? Oh, girl. Oh, girl.
Let me tell you. So yes, I have seen businesses implode because of the fast growth. There's been just because the revenue has come in fast and furious doesn't mean the business is doing great, because there's been no real operational setup. Structurally, the business is not solid. Maybe the right people are not in the right seats.
Right.
So there's been some interesting ventures that I've seen falter and even like bankrupt because of fast growth.
Brenda, what about you? What have you seen?
Well, I think a lot of small businesses find it difficult to let opportunity go by, and they're afraid to say no, so they'll take on the challenge. However, saying no feels counterintuitive.
Yep.
However, I feel like sometimes you have to make those decisions to let the business grow.
Yeah, you do. And it does feel counterintuitive. It does feel like, what do you mean I want to say no to growth? Why would anybody want to do that? But much like what Carolina was saying, like you can run into fulfillment issues, or you don't have the infrastructure in the business that it actually makes it fall in on itself.
Well, and not only the infrastructure, but we're also talking about cash flow.
Right.
Right? Because you have all the sales, and we've all seen one or two episodes of Shark Tank, right? And you have all these people pitching in the products and going in and going hard at it, and then they don't have the inventory. They don't have the fulfillment, the websites, in your world, Trish, you know that.
Yep.
They don't work, and then people are getting upset because they were promised one thing but not being able to deliver. So there's so much more in business than just being able to generate the revenue.
You know what's funny is I remember hearing this story about the Oprah Winfrey show back in the day when Oprah was still doing her thing. If she had somebody on there, they would say, like, before they would have somebody like, oh, Oprah's favorite things or whatever, they'd reach out to the business owner and ask, is your website ready? Are you available for fulfillment? Because once you touch the O button, all of a sudden they're going to blow up, right? So I'm curious, in both of your experience, what have you seen as red flags? Like a red flag, like the business is growing too fast.
Well, one of the biggest things is your customer experience. When you start not getting the things out that they need in time, or not answering them when they need to be answered, the quality of service, when that starts to slip in, that's the biggest red flag.
Right. I think that counts for service businesses and products, like fulfillment, but also not being able to deliver on a service. Are you seeing the same thing, Carolina?
What I'm seeing is the cash flow. I mean, and let's be real. Cash flow is the biggest issue for all businesses. It's not just whether you're small, big, larger corporations face it the same way. That's why people go into debt, because of cash flow. But the issue that I see is that people go into like fast mode of growth. They don't necessarily have the cash flow stability in the business. And then they also don't necessarily have great credit ratings.
Right.
To be able to go in and tap in for additional funding, or to have a line of credit, or to be able to bring in investors, because everybody's going to be looking at that balance sheet.
That's right.
Even though nobody wants to talk about it.
That's right.
Nobody wants to look at that damn balance sheet.
That's right. That's right. I think we're going to dedicate a future episode to that too, because that's one of those things that people really do get scared about and whatnot. But another one that I want to talk about is burnout. And my girl Julie B actually wrote a book called Burned, and if for anybody listening, I highly recommend it. It's the same publishing company that did Traction. She really nailed it, and she herself went through in a tremendous burnout. So that's another thing with small business owners. Have you seen with any of your clients or in your own experience, what have you dealt with when it came to burnout?
Well, kind of falling back to saying no.
Mm-hmm.
The burnout comes at that point because I had too many clients, and this was a few years ago. I had too many clients, and I wasn't fulfilling what I need to fulfill.
That's right.
I wasn't able to perform the way I wanted to perform. So, when I realized that I can say no, and I can continue a good business, I felt relieved.
Right.
But the burnout came when I was trying to do everything for everybody.
Sure.
And so saying no or firing a client,
yep,
it worked for me.
Saying no to something is like saying yes to something else. Because anytime you say yes to something, you're saying no to something else.
Right. And it goes, I mean, it hurts sometimes. I remember I got fired by a client.
Right.
I remember that first time. And I'm like, me?
Right.
What did I do? But I realized I wasn't performing the way I needed to perform.
Right.
But like you said, they said no to me, but I got a bigger and better client like a week later.
Right.
So it's all good. But the point is being burnt out because you're trying to do too much was my issue.
Right.
And I just had to bring it down a few notches, get rid of the people that we wasn't performing for, because what you don't want is to be grabbing all these people that are not performing and then they start talking about you.
That's right. And bring down your reputation.
Right.
And
so
like
I wanted to make sure we was performing for the clients that we did have.
That's right. I'll say like a personal experience, and it's actually what inspired my first book, which was taking on a bunch of clients, and then I wasn't charging enough, and I kept taking any clients that would come, which of course was a terrible mistake that I didn't realize at the time. And what I realized is, in addition to scaling your money and scaling your functionality, you're scaling energy too. And when you're taking on things that don't fit, whether it's because you can't fulfill or because the client's difficult or whatever it is, there are three currencies in life. You've got time, money, and energy. And anytime you're in a situation where you're expending more than you're bringing in, that's when burnout's going to happen. I mean, Caroline, wouldn't you say the same thing?
I mean, 100%. Part of the conversation is on scaling back, not only the burnout, but we're human beings.
Right.
Even though
I'm a superhero personally.
I know I'm a badass, but that's not the point. We're humans. We all have different challenges in our personal lives.
That's right.
That we can try to separate ourselves from business, but as the CEOs and the founders and the people that move and shake things, our personal lives do interfere in some ways in our business. And for me, if I'm going to be raw and real, was about scaling back because I was going through a divorce.
Right.
And I was becoming a single mom.
Right.
A business owner. I was shifting my life after 18 years. And I had to scale back and not take any more clients to be able to figure out, where is my energy and my time really best spent at this stage of my life? The business is not going to go away, but I just could not take any more in until I was a little bit more stable, until I felt like mentally I could take on another additional challenge in my life. Okay, for now, I'm scaling down. So scaling down is not necessarily just to do with the business, is that we are intertwined with our businesses and our personal lives.
Yeah, totally. It's impossible to not. And that's, again, one of the things that's a little bit different about working for someone else versus working for yourself, is that it really never leaves you. It's very much a part of who you are. Even like, we're all mothers, and even when our kids are grown and they leave the house, we're still their moms. Like, it might be functioning on its own, but ultimately you still have an interest in their success. Same thing with your business. Even when you get to a point where it's like, all right, well, I closed up shop for today. It's not that you're not thinking about it. Of course, you're going to bed thinking about it and be like, oh, I hope sort through this, or I hope I sort through that. or I really hope XYZ happens. Same thing with our kids. We want good things for them, even when, like I said, they've kind of left the nest. When we close the door on our business, or we shut our laptop, or we go on vacation, are we really on vacation? I mean, come on, sure, like we want to unplug as much as we can. But I think that also speaks to, because it's something that we've created, much like with children. It's something we've created. It's hard to just say, I'm going to turn it off. You never turn off being a mother either.
Right.
Like it never shuts off.
Right.
So I feel like it's a unique situation that happens.
Right. And your level of responsibility with your grown children changes.
It does.
Yes. And it does in business as well.
It does. It does. And that's when you're building a team and things like that work out. But go ahead. I'm sorry, Miss Brown. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, I think COVID taught me way more than I ever expected with business, just having to adjust and transition into different things. But during COVID, I felt like I was working 24/7.
Right.
Period. I would be at the office, and I go home and I'm still working. And my daughter, quick-witted, Alana, she said, I said, well, I'm at home, I'm doing this every night, and I'm doing this. She's like, well, how's that working out for you?
Ooh,
because because it wasn't like it was bringing more business, not like that, because the business was already flowing.
Right.
It was just, I felt the need to do that and do it. And when she asked me that question, I was like,
out of the mouth of babes, right?
I'm like, right, I could have done this at the office and been done right now.
Right.
But yeah, that was one of the biggest things. And sometimes, like you say, out of the mouth of babes, somebody can hit you with a one-liner.
Right.
And that thing just changed your whole trajectory.
I think we do that to one another.
And we do.
Yeah, I think we do that to one another quite a bit. And it's interesting that you bring up COVID, because all three of our businesses were hit in different ways for COVID. Of course, you're doing staffing, but you do medical staffing. So especially during COVID, it was crazy.
It was beautiful looking.
Right, yes.
As she explained.
From a revenue standpoint.
Yeah, from a revenue standpoint, it was beautiful. But the effects after COVID, when those hospitals slashed those rates, and those people who were making a certain amount during COVID, and you have to ask them if they want to work for half of that.
Right.
That's been the issue. And people know their worth now, right?
Right.
They know their worth. They're not wanting to work for pennies when they was just making dollars and dollars and dollars.
Right. It's got to be interesting, too, for a business like yours, because you had to expand, and so you needed more people. You were getting new clients, so you had to get new people to fulfill, and then all of a sudden it goes away, and then your business starts to shrink with it, too. Not just revenue, but like you're not going to be able to take on as many people, too. So it impacts the infrastructure of your business, too, not just the revenue.
Right, it does. It does. You both have said earlier that you can bring in all this revenue, but the outgoing, the people you have working for you, whether it's the clinicians or the office staff, you still have to pay these people.
Right.
You still have to make sure they're good. And that's my priority, is trying to make sure I'm taking care of everybody. Right. Which is another thing on our shoulders as business owners. Right. We have that responsibility that we got to make sure they get their money so they can pay their bills. Right. That's right. And they can do what they have to do. And then this economy is ridiculous. Right. That's another episode. That's a whole other episode. That's a whole nother episode.
We'll talk about that.
Right. That's a different situation. Yeah.
But it's just the point to what I was saying is those one-liners when you think you're doing everything you can possibly do. Right. And that, well, how's that working for you? Right. And you sitting there like,
right. Okay. That's a very, very valid point.
It was a crazy feeling too.
Yeah.
But
it's
I don't do that.
Again, I love the fact that we do that to one another. And I can remember conversations with Carolina during COVID and how interesting it was for her, being, accounting and running a bookkeeping firm, and then all these small businesses getting PPP money and her having to try to delineate, things that were coming from the federal government from a money standpoint, and then saying, okay, so here's what's going to happen. Here's the information you're going to need. Like to the point where I felt like you were doing lunch and learns, except nobody can go to lunch because it's COVID. So it was like all this kind of crazy stuff. And again, and I have to point this out because I point it out every chance I get. Not only are you discerning information that's coming from the federal government, you're doing it in 2 languages. So I always think that's, and the government stuff that's coming isn't even your native. Now, clearly you speak fluent English, but it's not even in your native tongue, and you have to kind of break this down in English and in Spanish something that's brand new that none of us have ever dealt with, which I have to admit, I always goose you up with this because I always feel like that's so impressive. But that was a challenge for you too. And like your business went bananas as well. So tell us a little bit about what that was like. And again, growing too fast when you don't even know what to do with yourself.
I wasn't even ready for the growth, but here, we were staying at home with my 2 daughters, just ending the divorce.
Right.
Was like scaling down, I got to figure my ish out. And then all of a sudden the phone started ringing and the emails start coming in and like, oh my God, I need financials. Oh my God, what is this PPP? Right. How do I qualify for it? What do I need? And all this was coming in. I mean, fortunately, my business was already set up for remote, for virtual, right, to begin with. Right. I was so smart to do that.
You're so smart.
But anyways. But the volume was now becoming, a little bit hard to manage. And then, how do we do quality when you have all these people that need critical? But part of the thing that came out of it was, we've all been to the Goldman Sachs 10,000 Small Business Program, right? Yes. And part of that program when I went in 2017 was to start providing fractional CFO services. Right. Well, when COVID hit, I hadn't started because I had been scaling my business back. So I hadn't started those services. I wasn't ready in my mind, but guess what? COVID was like, well, now you're ready because here you are. Now you got to start.
Ready or not.
You got to start providing some strategic advice as a fractional CFO because people need to start pivoting their businesses. Right. And so that became part of what consumed most of my time was trying to help my existing client base. How do you continue to generate income and continue to have a sustainable business now that you don't have a brick and mortar, now that you have to send everybody to their homes? Like, how do we do this? How do we market it so that you can continue to have revenue? So that became like the second half of the year.
Oh, tell me about it. So interesting, because in my own experience, what ended up happening when COVID hit for us, well, first of all, I had such a personal tie. Like COVID hit all of us, but growing up in New York is one of the places that was hit the hardest. So my whole family is up there. And my dad was a first responder at 9/11. So his lungs were already kind of screwed up. At the time, he was, I want to say in his late 60s, early 70s. I don't exactly remember. I think it was early 70s. And he was one of the first like rounds to get it. So in early March, I think he was diagnosed on March 17th. So it was like really fast. And he was super, super sick. And like my sisters and I were just convinced, like, he's already got 9/11 cough and he's got COVID, like we're going to lose him. So doing that. And then within the first week, once everything started to shut down, what's one of the first things people like to cut? It's marketing. So I'm losing my big accounts and I'm like, okay, so I'm on the couch watching the news, sucking my thumb. Like, all right, so I guess my kids are home. This is great. And that's it. I was like, this is wonderful, children. And hope you guys know how to panhandle because this is going to get ugly for a minute, right? So then what's interesting is what ended up happening is the month of March and the month of April had the worst. April was the worst month since our first month. So absolute worst month. But May, what was interesting is everybody started to realize that their brick and mortars, they weren't going to have any foot traffic. So what do they need? Websites. So they need websites. They need people to find them, like SEO, but find them online. Restaurants in particular, anything that was out there, they were transitioning from brick and mortar and foot traffic to e-com. Right. So all of a sudden, this girl's getting all kinds of phone calls. So, and what's interesting is the 3 big clients that went away, 2 of them came back, like within a month. Right. So we went from having one of the worst moments to the next moment. And then I'm like, here I am ready to fire everybody. And I'm like, oh, wait, now I need people. Like it was very crazy to kind of watch that bounce back. And again, it's not what I would recommend as far as how people grow, but there is a degree of pivoting and responding and things like that. So yeah, it's been a very interesting. COVID was a really great example of how to expand and contract in a very short period of time. Very short period of time.
Very much so. And in a way, a lot of businesses did learn some lessons.
That's right.
In a positive way to restructure their operations and also and be more mindful of their financials, because
Right.
that was the biggest gap that I found in my area of business, is that so many businesses go and they're running their businesses out of a checkbook. They don't even
Right.
know what is, what is a profit and loss, what is a balance sheet. Like nobody
Right.
knew, and all of a sudden you have PPP and you have the government saying, well, we need proof.
Right.
And what about, are you an employee? Are you a
Right.
contractor? Like what is all of these things? Oh, don't get me talking about the 1099.
Right. Yes, I know. She'll go crazy on the 1099s.
That's another episode.
That's another episode. So, Carolina, I'm going to put this one on you, and then I'm going to bring it over to Brenda too. What are some tips you would give somebody that is really struggling with right-sizing their business? They're either not scaling fast enough, or they're scaling too quickly, or they feel like the wheels are literally going to come off the vehicle that is their business. Like, what are some tips that you would give, or signs to look for that you need to right-size your business?
If you feel that you're kind of out of control,
Mm-hmm.
you have to look at your operational processes.
Mm-hmm.
What systems do you have in place?
Mm-hmm.
Or are you relying so much on your brain and your notepad and your phone versus sharing information across systems with others in your organization? Because
Right.
oftentimes that pain comes from not having control, right?
Right.
Like, and we as business owners, what do we try to do? We
Right.
try to control, right?
Sure.
So looking at your operational systems and processes to see what's not set up correctly,
Right.
and how can I improve this so that I feel less, and then I can grow, because
Right.
now I have something in place. So I'll give you an example. A couple of years ago, I was starting to feel that growth again, right?
Sure.
COVID had gone and my business was growing. Fractional CFO is kicking off and just doing well. But then I'm like, okay, but I still feel like I have to make a lot of decisions myself. And where's the time? Like, I want to
Right.
travel. I want to live life.
Right.
And so I brought in somebody to look at, so how do we operate, and what
Mhm.
systems do you have? And they did a whole workflow of
Mhm.
my entire business,
Mhm.
and then came up with, here's the automation for some of the things. Here's
Mhm.
how your people are going to know how to do it. And here's how you're going to keep an eye that it's being done,
Right.
but that you don't have to decide because it's already been set up. That to me was a game changer
Right. Right.
for growth.
Yeah, that's a really important one. I've got some examples as well, but I think, do you have some examples to be on tips you'd want to give, or red flags to look for people who are trying to right size their business?
I was going to say standard operating procedures as
Mhm.
well. Just having those procedures written out or automated, whatever you have to do to make things easier and to make it where somebody else can do it.
Right.
It can be, imitated, I guess you can say, but
Mhm.
have something that someone else can do written out that you don't have to be there,
Sure.
and then it goes as smooth as possible. Also, think about the people you have in place. If you're not strong in one area, get somebody else who's strong in that area.
Right.
Or if you don't have enough people, maybe you can either lower your rates so you can get more people in, or you just give them part-time hours. I don't know the exact answer to that because
Mhm.
I've been dealing with that, trying to make sure I have the people in place, as well as having things that can be redone over and over again. The best piece of information I have, and I received it from somebody, is just and the Goldman Sachs program too,
Mhm.
is just to make sure you have that standard operating procedures in place.
Mhm.
That was the best decision I've made, to write out my job description, to write all this stuff out, to have it where somebody else can come and do it if I'm not there.
Mhm. Yeah, I would say for the clients that I've run into that are struggling to scale, or they're scaling too quickly, and of course, I'm going to bring a marketing perspective to this, which is, if you find that you are running around like crazy and yet you're still not making enough money, you might want to narrow your focus as to who it is that you are targeting. Now, sure, are you going to sell? I always use this analogy where, if let's say you own a hair salon and you've got all your girls in there and they're getting their hair done, they're getting their curly hair straightened, or their straight hair curly, and they're dyeing their hair blonde, or they're getting braids, or whatever they're doing, and a bald man walks into your hair salon, are you going to sell to him? Sounds like a
Yes.
trick question.
Yeah.
Of course you're going to sell to
Of
him,
course.
because we are in sales and we want to make money. But are you
Right.
going to market to bald men because he might come to you?
Right.
No. We're going to market to people who are the regular ones that you're going to want to come in. So when you're trying to right size your business, you want to consider, who is it that I'm marketing to? Who is it that I can fulfill for quickly? Who's got the best profit margin? And focus your efforts on that so that you can scale without having to grow and, pull in different people to do different tasks. Do one thing correctly over and over and over, and then you can kind of scale from there. So I always find that who you're targeting and who you sell to can also be an impact as to, how you're going to, right size your business.
As when I first started, we had a niche. We had a niche, and we stuck with that niche, and we targeted all the hospitals across the U.S. that serviced or needed those type people or that type of nurse. And then once we got a little bit bigger and we started getting more clients, then it started expanding. But when I'm helping other people or talking to other people about starting businesses, I always do tell them they need a niche.
Yeah.
They need to
niching
focus.
down. In the niches are the riches, as they say.
Yeah, for sure. You have to focus on this and become that expert.
That's right.
In this area, then you can move out.
It makes fulfillment easier too.
Absolutely.
And I really do think that's one of the keys from a cash flow perspective, of course, but really from a scalability and being able to fulfill. And that's one of the things you were saying earlier is to make your SOPs, replicable, something that you can repeat over and over again. If you're serving the same people and they have the same problems, even though you bring it to the customer and you say, oh, it's a very customized solution, it's usually not that customized. It's usually there's an element of template that needs to happen there.
100%.
And that just makes your life, it also positions you as an expert. So many people feel like, oh, I need to offer custom solutions to everybody. Well, if you're a master of everything, then you're a master of nothing. Yeah. So you really want to be an expert in the one space. So one of the things that a lot of business owners, and I think even we've all dealt with this too, which is, imposter syndrome, and I'm freaking out, I don't know what to do. But when you're right-sizing your business, scarcity, thinking in terms of a niche, you're like, yeah, but if I niche down, then, what if somebody over here feels like they need me, then they won't hire me. So how do you deal with, recognizing that niching is important, but then there's also the scarcity mindset, there's just not enough in that niche. Have you guys ever dealt with that? Have your clients ever dealt with that?
Well, I definitely dealt with that, because I think about 3 or 4 years into my business, when at the beginning I would take any client for any reason, for any amount of money. I just needed to have a client, right? And as I was starting to get a larger client base and realizing that not all clients are a good fit for me, but it would scare me.
Sure.
To say no. It scared me to let go. It scared, because then how do I replace that client? How do I get that income back, right? Because now I've grown my income to this level. How do I maintain it there? If I say no to other people, the ones that I don't see a good fit or that are sucking the life out of me.
Right.
So I really had to look back at my data.
Right.
And so I'm going to go with the numbers.
That's right.
I look at my data and I look at the revenue and the number of clients that we were taking care of on a monthly basis for 18 months. And I noticed a trend. It was never going down. That trend was never retracting. It was always, even if it was by a small percentage, it was going up. So that gave me a little bit of confidence in being able to say, well, if I'm okay where I was 18 months ago in my revenue size, if I start letting some go, I'm still going to be okay, because I've never gone back that far. And so just looking at that trend gave me that confidence to change and not feel like, oh my God, where's the next client going to come from? And then the second part of that, besides the data, was the relationships that I was building with all of you and all of my business associates. Was well, they'll refer business because now they know me. Absolutely. They like me. They know what I put out there and what kind of quality. Oh, God.
That's it. I'm not sending you anybody.
That gave me also that sense of, okay, I have people who have my back. So there will be business coming in, even if I say no to this.
Right.
So it's interesting that not only are you pointing out essentially what's a mindset shift, because you have the mindset of I need to get business, because that's what we're all when we're running in the beginning. You need me to sweep the floors? I got you. No problem. And that I understand that. We all understand that. But once you get to a point, you can't like we were saying earlier, what got you here is not going to get you there. So you need to have that mindset shift. But also, don't believe everything you feel. Like, just because you feel like you're an imposter, or just because you feel like you're not growing, look at your numbers, look at the data, because the data will not lie. So it's just an interesting insight there, Carolina. So what about you, Miss Brenda?
I had a pretty good experience doing my niche, right? Because I'm in healthcare. So when we have a niche, then they do look for you. They look for you. Now, I was excited when we started to be able to get the different types of nurses and service the larger hospitals.
Right.
But knowing I had that niche, I knew that if I was to approach this particular company or one like it, then they would use me, and they did. And they still my clients to this day from at the beginning.
Right.
So I still think having a niche and being, having something to focus on and target is definitely a way to go, but don't be so focused that you don't see the growth opportunity outside of that.
That's right.
Because when I was able to get the hospitals, the larger hospitals here, they wanted everything.
That's
a
right.
little bit of this and a little bit of
Right.
that, some of that over there too.
Right.
So we had to expand out, but they also needed that same ones that had the niche. So
That's
I was
right.
able to fill those positions really quickly because I already had a nice set of nurses for that.
Right.
And then I was able to target and start recruiting for the other ones.
Right.
So I had a great experience with that part of it. One of the things that I can't wait till we get to talk about is paying yourself first. And I've been to many of Carolina's talks.
Right.
That is something that I also learned, that you have to learn that technique. And I can't wait till we get to that segment as well.
No, that's going to be a good one.
Yeah.
One of the things that I noticed was when we were working with a local restaurant here in Charlotte, North Carolina, and I'm sure you guys have heard of it, meaning you ladies have heard of it. It's called Max. So it was a Max barbecue place. So for those of you listening who haven't heard of it, its positioning in the market is it's a motorcycle bar. So, right, Miss Brenda?
Hey, Brenda.
Get some Harleys over there. So what is associated with motorcycles? Obviously the bikes themselves, leather, sometimes tattoos. There's like an edginess to it that's part of the whole Harley Davidson positioning. So Max kind of would attach itself to that.
Right.
And yet they have a children's menu. And yet you got lots of people in there who do not ride bikes. And they show up and they're like, well, we like the wings and the kids like the french fries. So we're going to come to this place. Well, why? That's not who we're targeting. We've niched down. We focus on biker people, and this is our positioning. And yet you've got families in there. It's just not something you would associate to. So the point I'm trying to make here is stick true to your niche, stick true to your positioning. Others will find you, even if it's not a perfect fit for you. They will make that determination. You don't have to make the determination by keeping yourself really wide. So niche down, and people who are outside the niche that still want what you offer, they will find you and they will use you. So it's just really interesting to me that, again, you still see they've got high chairs in there. It's Max, like we got all the babies in here. They do sell bike nights.
And they have food.
They do.
We all need food.
Yes, we do. Yes, we do.
Even the babies.
Yes, even the babies. Even the babies. So yeah, so I always find that to be an interesting, approach, is to think about it in terms of niching down doesn't mean cutting people out. Right. It just means it's a focus for your business. It has nothing to do with whether or not outside clients would focus on you. It's a different mindset. It's a different way to look at it. So
also, one thing I wanted to definitely touch on is, you have those clients that cause you so much anxiety that you can't sleep at night. You can't do nothing right.
Right.
I let them go. I want to live my best life.
That's right.
And what I don't want to do is be stressing
right
over the people that just don't appreciate what I'm doing anyway.
That's right. And there's a process to do that too, where you can start to determine what are some of the common threads that exist between the clients that you actually really want, the clients that you really love, and then trying to figure out how do you get them and how do you attract them and how do you continue to attract them. And there may be a book that you go about called "Get More Clients You Love." Just saying, there might be one if you are interested that will walk you that. Oh, that's right. I wrote that. That's right. Me, Trish Stamen, "Get More Clients You Love," available on our website. So
yes,
but it's true though, and honestly, it was born of one, not right-sizing my business, having a moment with my child, and when you read the book, you'll see this, where I'm with somebody who was absolutely abusive and absolutely should not have been my client. And in a weird way, I'm thankful to him, who I will not name names,
right?
Sure.
But because he did inspire me to put this program in place so that we can attract the right clients.
That's right.
And I have to say, having read your book, not just because you're my friend.
That's true. I am your
friend. And not just because I like to read.
You do like to read.
But as a business owner, I wanted to understand, I'm the salesperson to some extent in my business. Of course. How do I have those conversations with prospects so that I can interview them to see if I want to do business with them?
That's right.
And so the approach that I learned was very insightful into how I'm doing this thing. And as a result, I do have a lot more clients I love.
Right. Well, it worked. I'm so glad. And that's the important of the niching down.
Yes.
And not thinking about in terms of scarcity. You're much better off building your business an inch wide and a mile deep, as opposed to diluting your efforts for everybody around you. It's just not, your clients will prefer it because you're an expert.
Right. And the result of that, the secondary result of that is that those new clients that really work for us and enjoy working with us, they refer us clients like that.
That's exactly right.
And now it's just awesome.
Right.
So you don't know that, but you told me that story a while back.
Did I?
Yes, you did. Which is what inspired me when I had to fire my first client.
Oh, is that right?
Because like I didn't feel like they appreciate the things I did. Like I'm answering your call at 2:00 in the morning. Like you need to do better for real.
That's right.
So I really remember that, and that had inspired me to do what I had to do, and gave me some type of courage to do it.
I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah,
it is scary to fire a client. It's a scary thing
because you don't know. Even if you are making some money, you can make more money somewhere else.
That's right.
Right? When one door closes, another one opens. Right. And that particular client, even though I was getting revenue, they was just abusive. They wasn't going by their contracts.
Right.
They was always calling me at 2:00 in the morning, calling somebody off of work. Who wants that? I don't want to do my nurses like that.
Right.
Right. So, and they was not in North Carolina, just so everybody knows. Just so you know.
Just so we're clear.
But that's one of the things that I did. I had to come to terms with. It was okay to say no. It's okay to fire.
Right.
And I'm sticking by it. I'm going to continue to keep my peace, protect my peace at all costs.
It really does matter. I feel like this has been a really good conversation. I do. I feel like this has been a really good, and business growth is great, but it comes in all forms, and you can grow it like a weed, which just takes over your garden. And that's not really what we're looking for either.
Yeah,
so
absolutely
you have any parting thoughts before we wrap up today?
I just would like to say that if you had an experience with pausing or scaling growth, if you have any situations that you would like to discuss with us, then follow us, subscribe to us, and we can set up a time to talk to you.
That's right. And have these kinds of discussions where we can really just, help people come to a place where, like, look, we've been there too. We felt the growing pains. We feel you too, and we have your back. So do you have any parting thoughts on that, Carolina?
Yeah, I would say, one thing that's really important about being in business is that it's a very lonely place at the top.
It is.
Even if you're just starting out.
That's
it's very lonely.
It is.
We're here. We like to help.
Right.
We like to share our experiences. So if you subscribe, you follow us, and you post your questions.
That's right.
Yes.
You can you'll hear the answers on our next show.
And if we don't know, we'll just say we don't know, because we are raw and unfiltered, and we don't have all the answers, but we got a lot of them.
And we'll bring a special guest that will have the answer that we don't have.
That's exactly right. We'll find somebody. That's one thing I will say about us is we are very resourceful.
Yes.
Make no mistake about it. So with that said, thanks for tuning in to Breaking Even Better, and we'll see you next time. Thank you so much for listening to the Breaking Even Better podcast. If you've enjoyed this episode, please take a minute to leave us a review on Apple Podcasts and subscribe to our YouTube channel for more content. To connect with our podcast or any of us individually, make sure you head to the show notes for all the links you need. See you in the next episode.